Well, the king is retired. Long live the king, right? Jon Jones has announced his official retirement from the heavyweight division and from fighting. Finally, we have an undisputed heavyweight champion in the UFC. And Dana White has finally come to terms with Jon Jones officially retired. He was pissed at the press conference that he announced his retirement, but at least he's come to terms with his retirement. And that brings Tom Aspinall to the top of the heavyweight division. He is the undisputed heavyweight champion now. We knew this was coming long back, right? Jon Jones was stalling time, was building this fight according to many of his fanboys, and the inevitable has happened. Jon Jones has announced his retirement, and it's no fucking surprise. He made statements like he does not care about fighting anymore. Even in an Instagram live with a fan, he did say that he is retired. But Dana White, in his own world, promoting the fight, promoting Tom Aspinall and Jon Jones to be the greatest fight of the decade.
Tom Aspinall, I didn't read it. I told you guys already, we'll get Aspinall versus Jones done.
Kept us waiting, kept Tom Aspinall waiting for almost a year or over a year. Kept the heavyweight division on a complete stop. Alex Volkov spoke about him, being depressed, being on the sidelines for a long time because the division was held by Jon Jones. And that is a fucking disgrace. That is an absolute disgrace. In 840 days or 804 days, I don't have the exact number with me, Jon Jones has defended his title once. Against who? Against a 42-year-old Stipe Miocic, who was actually retired, who did not have a fight after his fight with Francis Ngannou for close to around 4 years. And still, he held that defense like it was a fucking achievement. You've beaten a 42 or a 43-year-old who's not fought for 4 years. That was your only title defense in heavyweight. You defeated Cyril Gane, of course, because you waited for Francis Ngannou to leave the organization. And that's when you went after a person who did not even know the W of wrestling. Cyril Gane was absolutely humiliated in that title fight. And that's because he was so weak at wrestling, he couldn't defend himself against, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I can't even begin to explain what Dana White must be feeling right now, right? His golden egg, his golden boy has now disappeared. His golden fight that he's been building for the last year or maybe for the last 8 months has now gone. And that was all predicted. Tom Aspinall said this, that he will retire Jon Jones before even fighting him. And that happened. So the question remains, whether Jon Jones was really the GOAT of MMA, or was he just a person who was really, or a fighter who was really good at fighting, but was considered the greatest of all time. Now let's look at his career as a whole. Jon Jones began his career in the light heavyweight division and became the youngest ever champion. And then till, I think, 2012, he defended his title admirably. He defeated all the greats like Shogun Rua to capture the title, Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans, Lyoto Machida, all the greats of the game. And then bam! He was suspended for a hit and run, for a felony arrest. And he was stripped of the title. He was probably the first person to be stripped of the title. He was the first person to be stripped of the title twice, because again, when he came back and when he defended or grabbed his title from Daniel Cormier, he tested positive for cocaine. And then again he was suspended. And he came back again, defeated Daniel Cormier again, and bam, again a violation. He was tested positive. And he lost his title twice. Now you can say that Jon Jones was a great fighter, was probably the greatest fighting IQ that was there in the UFC. He was the most skilled fighter. He was a great wrestler. He was very, very good and very, very sleek on his feet as well. He defeated a lot of fighters by his wrestling prowess. Daniel Cormier being the prime example. DC was a great wrestler himself, but couldn't take Jon Jones down. The only person to take Jon Jones down was Alexander Gustafsson. So yes, you can say that Jon Jones was pretty well-rounded as a fighter, a model fighter, if there was ever one in the UFC. In terms of only fighting, in terms of his fighting prowess, in terms of his wrestling prowess, even in the stand-up game, he was really, really great. But was he a model champion? Now, of course, you can say that off the ring or off the field, you're not supposed to judge athletes by their actions in the greatest of all time debate. But okay, let's look at his in-ring prowess. He is the only person to get a UFC event cancelled just because he couldn't accept a fight with Chael Sonnen, a short notice fight with Chael Sonnen with 3 days remaining for UFC 151. Now imagine Islam Makhachev doing the same thing with Renato Moicano. What would you say? What would the fans say? Chael Sonnen is accusing Islam Makhachev of running away from Ilia Topuria. He wants to become a double weight champion, and according to some analysts, according to people like Chael Sonnen, he's running away from Ilia Topuria to become a double champion because he's so scared of Ilia Topuria. Now imagine what people would say about Jon Jones. Was he really scared about or really scared from Chael Sonnen? Because he defeated Chael Sonnen, he actually downplayed his fight with Chael Sonnen when he actually faced him. He TKO'd him in the first round despite breaking his foot. But he was the only person to get a UFC event cancelled, only because it was a short notice fight and he did not have ample time to prepare for it. Is that a model champion? He won the heavyweight championship and then kept everyone in waiting. He himself waited to face the greatest heavyweight of all time. That is Stipe Miocic. The greatest heavyweight of all time was 42 years old when he was calling him out. That fight shouldn't have happened. Who was interested in that fight? Stipe Miocic was done. He is a firefighter. He was done from the fight game. He looked slow. He looked so slow against Francis Ngannou. And I can't even begin to tell you how slow he looked against Jon Jones in that eventual fight that happened last November. That was a disgrace. That seriously was a disgrace. While you had an interim champion waiting in the ranks, you had Tom Aspinall. Why did you have that interim championship if you did not want to have the interim champion face the eventual champion? So all this considered, would you really say that Jon Jones was the GOAT of MMA? I mean, of course, looking at his fighting prowess and looking at his wrestling prowess, you can say that he was the most complete fighter or the most complete fighter in terms of skill set and fight IQ. But as a champion, was he a model champion? Was he someone you would idolize? Someone that sat on the sidelines, that held up an entire division which already is so weak? But Jon Jones has retired now, and the heavyweight division can finally move on. So whether or not you would consider him to be the GOAT, his retirement is why the armchair fighter can finally rested.